Holy Ghost. Around 7 years ago, I went into a doctor's appointment. I just had a checkup, what I thought would be a normal checkup. About a week later, I had a phone call from the doctor's office. I remember I was working as a bailiff at the county courthouse at the time. And somewhere right before court began, I received a phone call that my results were abnormal and I needed to come back in for a procedure. I had a lot of different thoughts that were going through my mind, but one of the first ones was that I had just had the shocking news that I had an STD, and the type of STD that I had was HPV, and the strand that I had, particularly the strand that I had, caused cancer. Yeah, hearing that was devastating, just the word cancer alone. I had just lost my dad from colon cancer a short time before that. And the next thought that ran through my mind was that I had to call my husband. And I had to tell him what the nurse had said, and I remember feeling a lot of shame about it initially. Very embarrassed, but I made the phone call and he reassured me, he would walk through anything with me and we'd get through it. So I went in for the first procedure and that was fine. I had no complications. It would be the second procedure when they called me back. That was where we had some complications. I had Justin with me at every doctor's appointment. He was right by my side. So when we went in for the second procedure, I remember not really knowing what to expect and being told as I was in the room, we're going to give you these 2 different medications. You're going to feel something like an adrenaline rush come over you. And it's everything is routine and you're going to be just fine. And at that point, I remember Justin saying, whatever medication you're going to give her minimal dose. She has severe reactions to medication. And I, again, didn't think anything of it, but this is where the procedure took a turn that was it took a turn for the worse. So I remember I could actually feel the medication. I could feel it come up over my body. And as soon as I felt it hit the back of my head, I knew I was in for a ride. And I remember just looking over at my husband, and I don't know if he saw the panic in my eyes, but I definitely remember seeing his face coming over, rushing over to the bed. And the next thing I knew I was, everything went black. During this time of the procedure, I went deaf because of the loud ringing that was in my ear. I was blind because I couldn't see anything, and I was shaking uncontrollably on the table. Because I couldn't see anything that was happening in the room, I wasn't aware of what actually was taking place. I remember feeling my heart just, it felt like it was going to beat out of my chest. And it felt like I was dying. And I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what was going on. And so I just started praying. And my prayer was, if I'm dying, like, let me see your face. I just wanted to see Jesus's face. And Justin said afterwards, he was telling me that I was saying the name of Jesus very loudly in the room. So the doctor actually continued the procedure while I was in this state. And I don't know whether it was 4 or 5 minutes later, I was starting to be able to see, and I was starting to be able to hear what was happening. And we agreed that we would definitely have to go under general anesthesia, if I were to have this procedure again. During this time, I was, leading worship, and I remember one song in particular that I just kept listening to was Kim Walker singing Walk With Me, because I just didn't want to be walking without Christ during this time. He was everything I needed. And my husband was absolutely amazing as he walked me through it as well. I was told by doctors that HPV is incurable. I've had many friends that have had HPV, that have HPV, and I've had to walk through it with them, go to doctor's appointments. I know how common this STD is. I just believed that, what the doctors told me, and they told me that it was incurable. It was something I would always have. It was something that I needed to stay on top of because of the cancer strand that I had. I just believed it. I just believed what the doctors were telling me. Recently, within the last 3 months, God really began to talk with me about this STD, this HPV, and he really began to gently speak to me about healing and completely healing me of it. And it's funny because at first it's not that I didn't believe Jesus couldn't heal me, because I've always believed that, he is my healer. I've seen him heal me in my past. I was a prodigal. I watched him completely transform and change my life. I had a craving to drink alcohol, and that was all gone when I said yes to him. I've watched him heal me of stage fright, of strongholds that I've carried for many, many years since I was young. And I've watched him break those off of me. But for some reason, I just believed what the doctors had said and put it in my mind that this would be something that I would carry and have to continually take care of. When God began to speak to me 3 months ago about it, he showed me the area of my unbelief. The area was that this would be something that I would live with. Because it was repercussion of my sinful actions. And I was a prodigal. I never thought about the future, right? Just did what I wanted, and that was the area of my mind, my belief that really needed healed. And he did it like he always does. So as he started stirring, talking to me, bringing this issue up to the surface, it was funny because I was listening to The Send on YouTube, and I saw Todd White get up on a stage, and I believe he was first praying over blind eyes to be open. This is a stadium full of people, and he's just, if you're blind, we're gonna pray over you. And people would just gather around those that needed prayer, and then he went into, if you are an addict and you have track marks, we're gonna pray over you, and we're gonna believe for those track marks to be gone. And then he said, and if you have an STD, we're gonna pray over that too. And I remember being in my bathroom, getting around doing for something, and I just stopped and put everything out of my hands and just went like, that's me. And I knew that it was the Father talking to me again, that I could believe for this. And so a short time later, I went to church, and my Pastor Abby, was giving a message, and her message was in Luke 8, and about the woman who was bleeding for 12 years, and she touched his garment. She touched Jesus's garment, and he felt the glory go through him, and he asked, "Who touched me?" And she was totally healed. And Pastor Abby said, if there's anybody that needs anything, anyone in here that needs healing, come forward and touch this. She had like a shawl, and come up and believe for it. It's just symbolic, but Jesus is going to heal you today. And I remember going up there and crying and touching it and believing for it. And the Lord said something to me that was so beautiful. And he knows exactly how to speak to us, because he knows I love my children. And he said the sweetest thing to me. He said, "Amanda," he said, "you have kids." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Would you ever tell your kids that they would have to deal with the repercussions of any sinful behavior if they said they were sorry and they repented of it?" I said, "No." And he said, "How much more do I love you? And how much more do I love my children?" And I just wept and wept and wept. And so a couple weeks later, I went into a doctor's appointment. I looked at the doctor and I told her I wanted to be tested for HPV. My husband was with me again. And I told her why. And I looked her in the eyes and I said, "I know that I have been told that I have HPV. I have also been told that it is incurable. I'm asking you to test me for this, because I believe in the healing work of Jesus Christ, and I believe he's going to heal me." She agreed to testing me. And a short time later, I got the results. I got online, and it said that my results came back normal. I had no sign of cancer cells. What it didn't tell me was whether or not I was tested for HPV and what the results were for that. And so I made a call to the doctor's office, and the nurse called me back right away. And I was actually in the truck with my husband. He was driving, and I was just talking to her on the phone, and she said, what are your questions? And so I told her, and she said, yes, I see your results here for the test. I do have it in front of me. And I said, before you tell me, I just want you to know that this is why I'm asking. I believe in the healing work of Jesus Christ. And so I'm believing that he's healed me of this. And she giggled, and she said, yes, she said, Miss Baugh, I see your results here. And she said, we did test you for HPV, and you tested negative. And I was in so much shock that I asked her to tell me again, and I put the phone up to Justin, and we were laughing and giggling and just rejoicing in the healing work of Jesus Christ. I just share my testimony with you because guilt, condemnation, and shame comes from the enemy. And I know that a lot of women have this. I also know how hard it is to walk through. And I want to share this verse with you. It's in Luke 8. This is what my pastor preached on that Sunday. In verse 43, it says, now a woman having a flow of blood for 12 years, who had spent all her livelihood on physicians and could not be healed by any, came from behind and touched the border of his garment, and immediately her flow of blood stopped. Jesus responded, who touched me? Somebody touched me, for I perceived power going out from me. Now when the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came trembling. And falling down before him, she declared to him in the presence of all the people the reason that she had touched him, and how she was healed immediately. And he said to her, daughter, be of good cheer. Your faith has made you well. Go in peace. I sat down. I don't recall my pastor reading in verse 48, daughter, be of good cheer. Your faith has made you well. Go in peace. And I just don't recall that. Maybe she did. But after I heard the results, I have a Bible plan. I was just going through it, and this was actually my Bible plan to read this specific verse. And I remember sitting at the table, and as many times as I've read that verse, it felt like that verse, like he was speaking it directly to me. I'm only sharing this because it's my testimony. Matthew 10:8 says, heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons, and raise the dead. And it ends with this: freely you have received, now freely give. And so I've received the healing power of Jesus Christ. I've received my healing, and I'm sharing it with you because I know that there's power in our testimony, and I know that this is so common, and I've conquered shame because of Jesus. And I told him, when I get the results back that you healed me, I'm telling the world, because you're so good. So I hope this blesses you, brings you hope, and encourages you that He heals. Jesus heals. I'm living proof. The doctors don't have the last say. He does. I'm Amanda Baugh. I believe in the healing work of Jesus Christ. And this is my story.